Or I meant to say Jenkins.
What's over here?
Jenkins.
And when were you born?
Oh, come on, will you?
Huh? You were born?
I was born in 6/2/22.
When?
June the 2nd, 1922.
Okay. So tell me about your childhood and your parents. When were they born? Do you remember?
Good position.
And what were their names?
Well, both my mother and father were born in Oakley, Idaho. I was born in Burley in 1922. Then we moved from Burley to Twin Falls. But mother and dad were both born in Oakley. I'm trying to think, if I was 22, was it in 80? Mom and dad were born in 89.
1889?
87 or 89. Dad was raised there from his father and mother, which were the Jenkins. I never knew either one of them. Well, I knew grandfather just before he died, after we had moved to Twin Falls. He came there and he was ill, and in fact he was dying. And I remember I know I wasn't over 8 or 9 years old when I saw him. And he was sitting in a chair, and I looked at his profile when I came in. Looked like it was chiseled out of stone. You know, because he was, that old, but he was a very handsome man, like Dad. But I didn't know my real grandmother. He married again after his wife died, which is my grandmother. And I didn't like her. I was small, but I still didn't like her. She was too nice a person. I didn't. So actually, grandparents, the only other one I really knew was Grandmother Erickson, which is mother's mother. And she lived in Oakley for years. And then she went to Declo with my mother's sister to live next door in another house. And she lived in that house alone next door. And she chopped her own wood, and she did her own house, did the whole bit. And she lived to be 100 years old. I think she would have lived much longer past that if she hadn't fallen downstairs in the big house next door. He was going to the bathroom, and she took the wrong turn, and they didn't even know it. She fell clear to the bottom of the stairs, and that little thing got back up and walked back up those stairs. Came back up, and they looked at her, and she was bleeding, and of course she told them she fell down the stairs. She lived for about 2 weeks. She died with internal injuries. The grandmother came from Sweden, but she was a Peruvian, and she lived in what she called the big house.
What's the big house?
Well, she was a slave. She was in slavery, and she lived in the big house. And she didn't talk much about it, but the only thing I remember Mom telling me was the fact that she didn't know a chicken had anything but wings. That's all they ever gave her. They get to eat the leftovers and stuff. So I don't know the year that she left there or how she even got out, but she did leave, and and she came out west with the Mormon movement. Poor thing, she got caught up with that bunch. But, I guess she, when she did come to the United States and migrated across the country. Anyway, I don't know how she met my grandfather Jenkins, or Erickson. She met grandfather Erickson. She was the first wife of grandfather Erickson. And I understand that he had 4 other wives. She was the only one that bore children. And the other, the other 4 were workers. Worked in the fields, worked in the house. Of course, she did too. And she had 6 children, and then he died. Left her with 6 young kids. And they lived out of town quite a ways, and the only thing she could do, she was taking in washing. She'd walk into Oakley, 7 miles, and get a load of groceries and take them back load of clothes. Take them back and wash them and press them with that old iron that you heated on a stove, and took those and then take them back into Oakley to make a living. My mom said that while they were out there, she remembers that grandmother she'd hear a noise, she'd grab the shotgun. And she said many times the Indians would come into the house, and grandmother gathered all the kids over in the corner, and she'd stand in front of them with a shotgun while the Indians took what they wanted. They didn't get much, but they did take what they wanted. Then they'd leave. But she said she stood there protecting them. She's just a little thing. She wasn't even 5 foot high.
Do you know what kind of Indians? What tribe?
Well, I think...
this was in Oakley, Idaho?
Yeah. Most of those were the leftovers of the war. They were scattered Indians that wouldn't fight or didn't fight. And they called them the Blackfoot. They lived outside of Pocatello. That was their main branch. But that's the ones I think that were in Idaho at that time. But Mom, of course, Mother and my father, when they were married, they were about 17 years old. 16, I think she was, and he was 17. They had 6 children. Laird was the oldest. Had Hazel, then Regna, and then Evelyn, and then Dell, and then Robert. And I was the youngest out of the group.
What was your mom's full name? Her maiden name?
Agnes Sophia Erickson. Sophia, they either say Sophia or Sophia, but it's Sophia. She's always said Sophia.
What is your dad's middle name? Or what was his name, William?
He was William Henry Jenkins. William Henry Jenkins. Everybody knew Dad. All the time that I was growing up, well, I traveled with my dad. Everywhere I went. Hauling sheep, in the sheep camps. Dad didn't start the sheep shearing business until later. I guess he was around 30, 39 when he won the world's championship shearing sheep, which was 412 heads in 8 hours and 45 minutes. And I think it was 1,000, I'd have to look on that. It was 1,300 and some sheep in 3 days. Pretty sure. With machine shears. It wasn't electric. It wasn't clippers, but it was machine shears.
Since we're on the subject, we can get a shot of...
Yeah, it's all recorded in Montana.
We can get a shot of that picture here. Let me zoom in on it. Of Grandpa Jenkins, William That's him.
Can you
After
close
he-
up on it?
Should focus on there. Let's see how still it'll focus. How old was he when he won that?
39, the way I figured it out.
Hmm.
Nobody can see this. This is a, you see it?
Mm-hmm.
They had a big write-up for him in 1962. World Championship sure. Never been beat either. And when he shared these were adult ewes. They were the adult ewes. They weren't a bunch of lambs. They were ewes. So they were the bigger sheep.
Hmm.
Yeah. He was born in Oakley on January the 8th, 1882. And mother was born in 1883. They were only a year apart.
Hmm.
And in 1904, at the age of 22, he left the farm and decided to take a chance at the cities with the city folks, and he moved to Burley. He said that he built the first opera house in the community. The structure was 2 stories high and was about 110 by 50 feet. And they had a bunch of lodges there. They had meetings. They had dancing. They had traveling shows. They had operas and this type of thing within the opera house. And he rented out a lot of it in storage spaces and so on. He was really a money maker. And he said that is until 1906 when it caught fire and burned to the ground.
Wow.
I fully believe, without a doubt, that the people there set it on fire.
Why do you think?
Don't grave that in stone, but that's what I do believe.
That was in Burley?
Yeah, Burley, Idaho. Dad also helped build the railroad across Donner Pass.
How old was he?
He had a crew of men at that time, and gracious, I don't know, Robert, how old he was at that time. He was quite young. He was in his 20s, late 20s. Excuse me. So, he was quite a guy. As far as I'm concerned, Dad was a very kind man. He was also a very...
Decaf.
Huh? Mo, why don't you come over here and sit with me?
Sure.
He was offered a job overseas, and he turned it down because Mom didn't want to take the kids and go all the way over to, where was it? Flexible Shaft Company. They wanted him to go over and set these things up, and my gracious. think it was South America, someplace in South America. Set up these shearing pens, and his dad had 10 shearing pens. He had 10 units, and each one of these units had 10 or 15 men that sheared sheep, and they set these up over the country. Made a lot of money, did well during that period of time until they started doing the same thing in Mexico and different places, and the Mexicans started coming up. So he got out of the business at that time. I think that was of course, Dad lived to be 83. My mother, she lived to be 80. Yeah. Lived together all her life.
Tell me about that time when you guys were out there getting the sheep and that one guy challenged your dad.
Yeah, that was a mistake. What we were doing, we were hauling sheep out of the South Hills into Rogerson, Idaho. Dad and I was only 13, but I was driving truck. And we'd go up with a 3-decker and a trailer, and we'd haul sheep down out of the South Hills to the railroad, and then they would put them on.
That one this way over there. Fall. I wanted to fall and break.
Then we put them on the train and then ship them out. Well, later that afternoon, when the train come in, we brought in our last load for the evening, and we were about 15 guys there, a lot of the truckers, and I don't know who this fellow was, but anyway, when we were trying to get the sheep up to shoot into the railroad cars, he took a sheep and he backed up into the chute and was dragging the sheep behind him, like this. And the sheep wouldn't follow him, you know.
Dragging them by their ears?
Yeah, he dragged them by the ears. The sheep was balking, you know how they do. Excuse me.
Not really.
Well, if you want a sheep to go that way, you drive him this way. That's the only way they'll go that way. You just actually have to pick them up by the back of the wool and turn them around.
Kind of like humans, huh?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They follow each other, they jam themselves into corners. Oh, there's something else. But anyway, the Dad looked up at this fellow and he said, hey, if you get out of there and let loose of that sheep, we'll get the sheep up. Yeah. And this guy let loose of the sheep and stood there, just looking at Dad. I never will forget it. Big boy, big man. Of course, Dad was too, but I remember Mr. Williams was standing next to him and he said, Bobby, I think your dad bit off a big chunk on this one. You know? And I says, well, why? So I waited, and Dad says, I told you to let loose sheep and get out. Now you get out, or I'm going to come up there and I'm going to throw you out. He stood there. He didn't move. So Dad walked up. And I remember as he walked up to this man, all I could see was his right arm go back, and he was laying on his back. He moved that right arm and he was down. I mean, Dad hit him so fast that it just chilled me. But anyway, he knocked him cold. And then he picks him up and puts him over the side. He throws him over the side of the bed. It was 5 feet high. He threw this guy over the side of that thing. He comes back down and said, all right, let's get the sheep up. So we got the sheep up. When this guy got up, it was a little while later, he didn't say a word. He just walked right out the fence line. So that didn't take much. He was He was the type that he'd give you his life, he'd give you his right arm. He was raised in a real heavy element during the period of his life. You know, they fought their way, and I remember the time it was my birthday, the night of my birthday, and Laird was here, my brother from California. He came back and he was with Dad. And they were at Soda Springs, Soda Springs, Idaho. And when Dad went into the city and he brought his pens there, well, and he just took over the town. It was his because he practically would buy it out because of the food that he needed and this type of thing for his people. And there was, I wasn't there, but my Laird was telling me, and of course Dad backed it up later. But they were in this bar. It was the only bar in town. And it was pretty loaded. They had a lot of people there. And I guess they were talking different things, I don't know. But anyway, this, Dad called him a half-breed. He was half Indian and half white, I guess. He walked up to Dad and he spoke to him about shearing sheep, the prices, this type of thing, you know. And Laird had just turned around to go over to Dad when this guy pulled his knife out and swung at Dad right across the face. And had a big guard on it, you know, off of the handle. Stuck out this way, jabbed at him, or this way. I don't know how he did it, but he tried to stab Dad in the head or cut his throat. And he hit Dad across the nose, the bridge of the nose and both eyes, and knocked him down. Just knocked him down. And everybody jumped on this guy. Laird was the first one to grab his right arm and get the knife out of his hand and had him down on the floor. And Dad says, give him to me. They said, Bill, you can't see. He said, I can feel, give him to me. So they gave him to him. And I guess he worked him over pretty good. Just beat him. Black and blue, man. And then they threw him in the can. And the sheriff there says, what do you want me to do with him, Bill? He says, you name it, and he's got it. And he said, well, you keep him here till I get back. So they kept him in there. But the wonderful part about it, that morning I woke up in the tent. Mom wasn't there, come to think of it. And I looked down out of my bed down to where Dad was, and my good gracious, both eyes were swollen like this. Couldn't see his nose. He still had, you know, blood on his face, and his nose all swollen up. And he heard me stirring around, and he says, I said, what happened? He says, never mind, just look under the bed. So I went over and I looked under the bed, and he says, happy birthday. And I pulled this gun that he bought me. It was a pump air rifle. Had a thing to come out of the end, you pump it up. It shot just like a 22. Man, it was great. But he didn't forget my birthday.
So
he was always good to me. Dell had a rough time with him at times, but not too often.
So what were your brothers and sisters like growing up?
Well, we were a very close family. It seemed like that our family, any things that we wanted to do, we would do them together. And we'd always meet over at Mother and Dad's and do it. You know, gather together and have our dinners and play cards and play games and this type of thing. We did that quite often. And Hazel, which was next to the oldest, she Laird, when he was in high school, after he graduated, he got a scholarship to Michigan. And he played football for Michigan. And he was put up for the All-American in Michigan. And he was also on the wrestling team in Michigan.
Around what year was that?
Oh, heavens. Probably 25.
1925?
26.
So you were about 3 years old?
No. No, let's see, 25.
You were born in 22.
Yeah. Let's see. What I'm trying to think is 14 years older. So, 34. I guess that was in the 30s. Be in the 30s, somewhere in the 30s. But anyway, he made All-American in wrestling and was nominated for that in football. So, and when he finished there, the reason he finished there, he had another scholarship. They offered him to Hawaii in electronics, this type of thing. So he took that scholarship. From there, he went to Hawaii. And when he came back, Laird was the first one to build a radio in Idaho. That's how early this is, you know, when you think about him coming around. He had loudspeakers out on the front of the house, and he had his office in the house. And he would play this music that he was getting, the music that was coming in. So he was the first one to have that in Oakland. He left and went to, he ended up in California. He was a manager for this manufacturing Ford plant there for quite a few years before he came home. And of course Hazel married Mac Hardwick, and he was an engineer.
Was Hazel married before that?
He was a civil engineer. Now, she was married once before Howard Bruner in California. Yes. And Billy, her first boy, was born as a Bruner. And
That was his dad?
She divorced.
That was William's dad, Bill Hardwick's dad?
Yeah.
Was
and after
Bruner?
she married him, after she divorced him, it was, I don't know how many years, but anyway, then she married met Matt.
So she took on Mac Hardwick's last name. Bill did.
Yeah, he adopted him.
No.
And then, of course, David was born as Mac's son. So she had two boys. And Hazel just passed away. Just, 3 months ago. And she was 90 years old, going on 91. Doing great. She's a sweetheart. Lovely. She was a real lady. I've met a lot of women, but I'll tell you, she was a real lady. She had it all.
What was her middle name?
Didn't have one.
She didn't have a middle?
Neither did Ragna. Oh, Ragna had Sophia. And
what was everyone's middle name?
Ragna is still living, and she's in a rest home in Visalia. She's 87. And Evelyn, she's still in Twin Falls. She and John Anderson, her husband, and they have 2 children living there. They're still there. They're doing fair. Of course, John been in a wheelchair for, 15 years. And then he had that stroke. And seems to get along pretty well. Evelyn's been hard on her because she took care of him all over the years. And then, of course, Dell, his wife's still living, but Dell died in 68.
In 78?
Rather than me.
Oh.
I mean, he died
in
86.
1986, yeah. From what, emphysema or?
No, cancer.
Cancer?
Cancer of the bone. His leg. I remember his first operation. I went to the hospital and helped bring him home, talked to him. I witnessed to him for 15 years about the Lord. And then he had to go back because that pain hadn't left his back after the operation. And they found out that he had cancer of the leg and they were going to operate on it. So I went into his room when he was in bed before he went into the operating table, and I said, Dale, I said, this is one time I can whip you. I said, I've never been able to whip you before, but I bet I can whip you now. And I'll do it if you don't receive Jesus Christ in your life before you go in there and have that operation. He said, Bob, I received the Lord in my life last night. And then I said, well, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, I was going over, you didn't give me time, you know. So that was a blessing. And after the operation, Dell lived, I guess, 2 months.
He was quite a fisherman, huh?
He's the only man that could take a bath in a bathtub and come out with a fish. He can catch a fish anywhere.
He got some pretty big ones.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he enjoyed that. We enjoyed a lot of times upon the Salmon River. Caught a lot of salmon.
Down where we're at. Where's the Salmon River?
Yeah, we always fish below, right at the headwaters. When you leave the headwaters of the Salmon River, you're, for heaven's sake, what's the name of it?
Is it up there by Sun Valley, or no?
Well, it's Sun Valley is this side of the pass, and you go over the summit, which is Galena Summit. You go over Galena Summit, and then there's Lake Alturas is over to the left. And that starts the headwaters of the Salmon River. Of course, you don't fish there, you fish on down, which is maybe 20 miles from the headwaters start. We'd go up there and camp on the river every year, catch salmon. Enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun. We were very close, Dale and I. He was the best friend I ever had. In fact, he was the best friend I ever had. We could confide in each other. We'd have a problem. We'd always gather with each other and talk it over. He was a neat guy. He really was. A real neat brother. Yeah, I missed him, I'll tell you, when he died. But I celebrated because he'd received Jesus in his life. So there's Ragna, Evelyn and I, we're still alive. Doing fine.
So tell me about that one incident with your dad when that guy came and
Oh my.
got revenge on him, was mad at him for firing him. How old was he?
How old was Dad? He was probably in his 50s.
Wow.
40, wait a minute, let's see, 50, yeah. He was 30. He was in his late 40s, I guess. Early 40s. I mean, late 40s. We were living over on 2nd Avenue West, right across the street from the Salvation Army.
In Burley?
In Twin Falls. That's after we come back. We were living in Twin. I wasn't very old. I was, I think just in first grade or second grade. So I was about 7, I guess, 7 or 8 years old. and we were over to Tibbetts' place, which is right back of us. And they were very good friends of the Tibbetts. See, Tibbet had 3 children, and they were there. I was there, my brother Dell, mother and dad, and then Mr. and Mrs. Tibbet. And we were all sitting in the front room, and we had a knock come at the door. And I remember Tommy got up and he went to the door, and all I could hear was this guy say, "Is Bill Jenkins here?" And he said, "Yes, he is." And just kind of stepped back, and and Dad got up, just stood up. He was clear to the other end of the room, and we were all in between. Mother was down there, and Mrs. Tibbin was down there. This guy steps through the door with a .38 automatic and starts shooting Dad. And I remember the first hit, Dad went, crouched, and then he started for the guy. He just kept coming, and he shot him 5 times. And they all hit him right here, just above the groin on the left-hand side of the leg. And one hit Mrs. Tibbin in the knee.
She was behind him.
Huh?
She was behind him?
Yeah. And another one went under my mother's chin, and she was bleeding from under the chin. Hit her under here. And Dad dropped. He fell. And this guy turned around, shot himself in the head, knocked him down, dropped the gun, and then he gets up, just grazed his head, and took off. And he ran down to Rock Creek. We lived quite close to Rock Creek. It's a big canyon there in back of the homes.
So did you guys live fairly close to the hospital?
Yeah, it wasn't too far. I remember we were right on the phone, boy. Police were there in no time. The ambulance right behind them. Got Dad to the hospital. And they found this idiot. His name was Buck Van Eaton. I'll never forget the name as long as I live. It's a name that kind of sticks with you, under those circumstances. But here's a guy that walks into a home full of children and women and shoots a man. So why didn't he kill everybody in there? So anyway, they threw him in the jail there in Twin Falls. Dad was in the hospital. And they worked on him, and they couldn't get the infection out. He was in there 2 weeks. And they came over to Dad and they told him, "Well, Bill, if you don't have your leg off, you can't live." He said, "We've got to take your leg off." And Dad says, "Well, that's too bad, because you're going to leave that leg on and I'm going to live." He said, I want out of here. They said, "Bill, you'll die in less than a week." He said, "Then I'll die with my leg on." He said, "I got a better nurse out there anyway." He was talking about Mother. So he made him let him out. And he went out of there in a wheelchair, went home, and he had his pens ready in Minidoka, and just above Burley. And I remember we got in that car, and Mom and Dad drove that stupid car. I can't believe it. Loaded, we got up there where the pens were, and his tent was up. And Mom built a great big fire when we got there. Laid him in the bed, and she got a wash tub full of water. She got it over on the fire. Nobody helping her. Nobody around. She was doing this by herself. She put that wash tub over the fire, boiling hot. Boy, that water was just bubbling. I remember she poured Lysol in it. And then she got these towels and a broom handle. She would drop those towels in there and pull them up, and I remember them dripping, and she'd walk over and drop it on Dad's leg. And I never heard my dad scream in his life, but I did that, He would scream, and she'd put another one on, you know.
Mhm.
She'd take that off and put another one on. That went on for over half an hour. And I remember her bending over and pulling those cores out of his leg.
Mhm.
They were big around as my finger, the cores, and about that long. And but she took every core out of every 5 holes. That's what was killing him. He couldn't get the cores out, and that was poison in his body. Sucked every one of those out of there, and can't remember what she poured on him. Saying it's something. And then she put a big bandage on his leg. And he walked and lived the rest of his life.
Mhm.
But he limped, had a limp.
Mhm.
And he told him to let the guy out. After 2.5 years. He said, and then he had told him to let him out. And I remember Mr. Tibbin met him when he came out of the jail. And he told the officer, he says, I'm going to take him outside of the city limits. Dump him out.
Mhm.
They said, okay. So he did. He drove him outside the city limits and just, I guess he really whipped him over good.
Mhm.
And Mr. Tibbin was about this wide. I never saw a man that big. He was just nothing but, he was a big man.
Mhm.
Wasn't very tall, but he was sure big.
Mhm.
Anyway, he whipped him. I remember him wearing those, peg pants
Mhm.
and leather wraps around his legs here.
Mhm.
They weren't boots. They go with a pair of shoes. He wore those. He was just a big, stout man. And then he told the guy, he says, if you ever darken this state again, he said, I'll know it, and you won't leave alive. So he never came back.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was quite a deal.
Mhm.
Dad wasn't a man to be pushed over, you know. He made it the hard way, lived the hard way. He went in the trucking business, and I was helping him, hauling sheep and that type of thing when he stopped shearing.
Mhm.
We hauled, before the war, we hauled cast iron. We'd get all this cast iron that we could get and haul it to Salt Lake City, and we'd sell that, and then fill up our truck with salt, and bring the salt back and feed it to the ranchers, sell it to the ranchers.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
What was the Great Depression like? Do you remember that?
Hmm?
No, you were probably... The Great Depression? Were you even...
Well, I didn't feel a depression when I was a kid, but
Mhm.
that was before my time.
Mhm.
I was born right after the Depression, 22.
Mhm.
Dad always had a roof over her head. He always had food on the table and clothes on her back. We never went without.
Mhm.
And that's more than a lot of people
Mhm.
can say, you know. He was great, great man.
Mhm.
Well, he started out, you know, in his early years, before he was even married to Mother, so he couldn't have been very old. 17. They were married at 17.
Mhm.
He was a prize fighter. And they set up these rings in Salt Lake City where this took place. They set up a ring out in the street, and it's bare-fisted. And he whipped Jack Dempsey. Now, I tell this to people don't believe me, but I didn't believe it either when I heard it.
Mhm.
And then I found out later it's the truth. It was verified. And knocked him out. Jack Dempsey went on to win the championship of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad, quit because Mom said, "I will not marry you if you're a boxer. I won't have that type of life."
Mm-hmm.
So he had to choose between boxing and mother, so he took Mom. I've seen him in action. He's scary.
Mm.
A good fighter.
So tell us about you.
Got time?
Mm-hmm.
My.
We got 5 minutes.
We said that I was born in 1922, June the 2nd of 1922 in Burley, Idaho. I only lived there a month. And then we moved from there to Oakley. And I lived in Oakley for the period of first grade. And I was in Mormon country. The Mormons, that's all there was in Oakley. And my mother and father were married in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
Big deal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cult. It's a sect cult. And they propagate the biggest lie that ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did, I never could follow it, ever. So after a year, I was in the first grade, so we left Twin Falls. We had left for Twin Falls. We had a ranch there. We had silver foxes that we raised in Oakley. Dad had the silver fox farm. And that went on for a period of years, and of course then we moved to Twin Falls. We sold that. The fur business got pretty bad. And then we moved to Twin Falls. So I spent I went back into the first grade in Twin Falls. I'd been in the first grade in Oakley, but evidently not long enough.
Mm.
But anyway, I went back to first grade. I remember in Twin Falls at the Lincoln School. So I went through grade school there and all the way through high school in Twin Falls. And during that period of time, I was working after school. My brother Laird was the foreman of the body shop there with the Ford garage. And right after school, I'd go down and go in and help them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go in and tinker around and hold tools and sweep the floors and take fenders off and this type of thing, you know. So I did that for about 3 years, and while I was in high school, I was the only kid around there that had any money. But I worked all that time with it. And I had my own car, I remember. I bought that. It was a Model A convertible.
Mm.
I wish I still had it. And I remember Glenn Jenkins, no relation, but they had the Chevrolet garage across the street. He come over and talked to me and wanted me to go to work for him. And I asked Laird, I said, "Laird, you know, I've been working here, but I know that I'm not hired. I just work part-time." He said, "You go ahead and go." So I went over with Glenn, and I worked over there for a couple of years
Mm-hmm.
with Glenn Jenkins as a journeyman. That's full-time.
Mm.
So that put me into the full element of a body man.
How old were you?
Well, let's see. When I went over there, I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
16 years old.
Mm.
And of course I could only work through the summers, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'd sometimes go over there after school and work if they had work to do. So I stayed in that trade for quite some time.
Just real briefly on Laird, what happened to him after going to Hawaii?
Well, he was, that's what put him as manager of the Ford plant, was his background in electronics and engineer of the, what was it? I don't know what they call it.
Where was the Ford plant?
Los Angeles, California.
So he went after Hawaii, went to Los Angeles?
Yeah. When he left Hawaii, came back to and took over the management of the Ford plant.
And did he get married there?
Yeah. A girl from Twin Falls. Her name was B. I don't remember her last name.
B?
B. I called her B.
And did they have any kids?
Yeah, I had 3. 2 girls and a boy. Sharon was the oldest, and then Nina and Billy, the boy.
Sharon, Nina, Bill. That's not our Sharon, is it?
Yeah, Sharon.
Bakersfield? That's Laird's daughter?
Yeah, third.
And what about her? And she had 2 brothers?
No, I have just the one, Billy. Nina was her sister. She's still alive, of course, and she's in Montana. No, Coeur d'Alene. Her husband's a dentist and also a football coach.
And the other brother?
And Billy was going to Moscow. He was taking civil engineering. And during the summer, he was working with a construction company, getting the feel of it. And while he was out there, he was killed working. Something about a chain broke. His chain broke off of one of the lifters and it flew around and wrapped around his neck and killed him. Just a young boy. Beautiful kid.
And what happened with
So
Laird?
that was a tragic situation.
What happened with Laird? How long did he live?
Laird was 68.
Was 68?
He died of cancer. He died of larynx cancer. Larynx.
He died at 68? 68 years old?
Yeah, while I was living in California. He came down to visit Sharon. His wife died first, and he died of cancer after that in California. When I stop and think of all the things that I've done in my life, it's been a pretty busy time. When I learned the body work when I was going to high school, and then of course I was caught up with the war, and I was drafted in 1942 or 1941. I was drafted and went into the Army and ended up in what we call a reconnaissance.
I had to cut off and we'll continue
Okay.
tomorrow.
Did you shut it off?
Pick up Robbie. Yeah.
No.
Okay, you're on the air.
Well, trying to start off where I left off yesterday. I'll try to pick it up. During my course of high school, of course, I was pretty active. I participated in basketball. I participated in football. And along with that, trying to work after school. Then, of course, during the period of time I was working with Jenkins Chevrolet, I came back and was hired out by Laird, my brother, across the street with Graham Paget's Ford garage. Of course, I was still in high school. I was working after school and on Saturdays and whatever holidays I could work. Anyway, during that time, of course, the war came along, and I waited to be drafted and was drafted into the Army.
Did you play any sports in high school?
Oh, yeah, football and basketball, both.
How old were you when you got drafted?
And I was better in track than I was in most of them.
How old were you when you got drafted?
I was drafted at 19.
So tell us about any sports in high school.
Well, I just played in them.
Huh?
I was no big star, I just played in them.
Yeah? Did you play football?
I played football. I played what we called halfback when I played, and today it's called fullback or
No,
quarterback.
It's tailback. Tailback or
Tailback.
halfback.
Yeah. No, it was halfback when I played. Enjoyed it. Of course, I destroyed my knees, and they've been a problem ever since. But
How many years did you play football?
I played 2 years, junior and senior. Well, actually, I was playing. Yeah, I guess I played 3 years. Been so long ago, I've forgotten most of it.
Played sophomore? You played sophomore year?
I played sophomore, junior, and senior. Yeah. And I was more active in basketball than was any other portion outside of track. I enjoyed the track. I was good at sprints, 80-yard dash and 100-yard dash, and broad jump. That's one I usually participated in. But anyway, the year came by at the end of our my graduation. I graduated in 1941 out of high school, and worked for some time after high school in Twin Falls, and then the draft came up. Before the draft, I went to California for 6 months. It's a friend of mine and I, and we worked in the aircraft factory, Douglas Aircraft, prior to being drafted. And we're building airplane parts and this type of thing. I worked on what they call a big press, which is had a Kirksite 2-ton top and a 2-ton bottom, and came together and formed the different patterns that we use for airplane ribbing and siding and that type of thing. Kind of fun. So after a period of time there, we went back to Twin Falls and was drafted into the Army. I went into the Army and went into the unit called the 42nd and the 2nd Cavalry Recon, which would be the feelers for the main body. We're out front feeling where the enemy is, this type of thing. And our training lasted for, our training was almost 5 months, 5.5 months. And then, of course, we went overseas. Went into England, and we hit on D6, which is D-Day. And we followed behind the infantry for establishment of the beach. And then we hit and on the beach, which is called this side of Cherbourg. Cherbourg is where we landed. Anyway, I spent
Cherbourg.
2 years in
Cherbourg, where?
France. Cherbourg, France. And so we pulled reconnaissance, which is we called the reconnaissance for the 4th Armored Division all the way across Europe, which is Patton's 4th Armored. And that was a couple of years out of my life. But anyway, I lived through it. I came back home and worked in Twin Falls for a while.
Tell us some history about the war. Some things you went through.
It was full of it, Robert. Where do you start? War it was a teacher to me. It taught me how precious life was during that period of time. It taught me how loose life was too, and how fast it could be taken from you. It gave you a strong outlook on being satisfied with little things. You don't need the big stuff, you know. It shows you the warmness and the shortness of your period of life on earth. But I wasn't afraid. I was afraid at times, but everybody is afraid, but I never felt that I was going to lose my life. I felt that my life would go on until after the war.
Mm-hmm.
There was quite a few times that they tried to contradict what I was thinking, but it didn't work out that way. I've told a lot of people this one. I mean, I've told only my family this story, and I don't think anybody would believe it, but I had left my unit. Of course, we'd go out in sections, and I was a section leader. I was a sergeant. And I was on recon out of my unit, which is a troop, C troop that I belonged to. And I was recon, and I knew I could hear the tanks, but I couldn't see them, which is the 8th Panzer Division that we stayed in front of us all the time we were fighting. We fought the 8th Panzer Division all the way across Europe. But I had left my Jeep back of me and my driver by the radio, and my assistant driver and I went up front. We crawled on our stomachs up over this mound and came down in a little draw, and there was a fence line there and fence posts. And I could see the tanks, and I could see the infantry behind them, and they were coming, about half a mile from us. And I was making the position and the report of the enemy while I was lying on my stomach behind this fence post. And I finally got up on one knee, and I was writing positionally and giving coordinates on the radio. And I could hear them firing, and I couldn't hear. When you hear a sound of a bullet going by, you don't hear it over 6 inches. And if it's 6 inches away from your head, you hear just a snap, like a breaking of the sound barrier by your ear. So they knew that they had spotted us, and I didn't see them. So, and before I left, a bullet came through the fence post that I was behind. It came through, and I saw that bullet. And it went like that. I saw it come through and miss me. And it reminded me of that story where the guy says, "What were you running for?" He said, "I was running because of the bullet." He says, and I saw it. I saw the bullet. I saw it when it passed me, and once when I passed it. So, but it's true. It came through and it missed me. God was with me. I didn't know at that time, but He sure was. Anyway, we almost lost the Jeep. They were firing in on us, and I guess they could see the Jeep. So man, I crawled back, got into it, and took off. And I radioed in. I told them I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going, and went around this hill. And I didn't know where my unit was yet, and of course we don't give out locations as to where we're located, you know. It was getting dark, so I thought, well, I'll try this one crest. And I went back over and went over the top of this crest late at night and looked down there, and there was my unit just below me. So we got home all right. But we spent the whole war behind enemy lines. We were either in front of them or behind them, giving reports of location of the enemy. Anyway, I finally ended up in the hospital. I wasn't hit, but we'd lost our colonel, Colonel Reed. He was wounded, and they gave us a infantry colonel, and we were reconnaissance. We were mobile, like reconnaissance. And this guy made us dismount, take off the 50 caliber, and those things weigh 100 and some pounds, and we were to go out on defense of the enemy that was on this hill. We knew they were up there, we could see them, and I knew that they had that 88, and they could pick you off at the best field artillery I've ever seen in my life. That thing can hit you at a mile away and you pinpoint you. It's like a rifle. Anyway, he told us to make the frontal attack up this hill. And I told him, I said, you haven't got a living chance. They'll blow us out of the saddle. We can't do that. Mm-hmm. We're mobile. We're informational, you know, and we always fight. Everywhere we went, we had to fight and get out of it, and then hit another spot and fight and get out of it. And as soon as we started up that hill, they let us have it. Man, they just scattered us all over the place. And I was running down this hill, and they were firing on us. And I don't know how many was behind me, but I don't think anybody was, except this one kid that was with me. And it was raining and it was wet, and the Germans had dug these foxholes along this tree line. And every time they threw one in, I dove into the foxhole. I dove into the water, and I'd come up, climb out of there, run. Another one come in, I'd dive in the foxhole. Well, the third one, I dove into the foxhole, and I heard it coming, and when I went in, and I felt it hit, and it was close. That's all I remember. And Brian, this guy that we took overseas under guard, he went AWOL 3 times during the period of training.
Oh, was that, what was his name?
I think it wasn't Brian, it was like Dryan. I forgot.
It wasn't Sorensen, was it?
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, she told
Where'd you
me.
get that?
You told me.
Sorensen, that's right.
Yeah. I told you that we had a Sorensen too who was completely worthless.
Yeah. Boy, he was, this guy. Worthless, but he saved my life.
Well.
And I woke up in Nancy, France. I didn't even know I was there. In this big hospital. And I was sitting at the table eating when I woke up. And I come out of it. They drug you, really. Just keep you on drugs all the time. Anyway. And I looked around, and all these guys were falling around and falling in their plates and sticking their food in their ear and dropping it on the floor. And I thought, my God, I'm in hell, you know. And then I felt somebody put their arms around me. Oh.
It's purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
You have to earn hell after that.
Boy, I'll tell you. This big gal, she put her arm around me. She was about 6 foot tall. Big nurse. We called her Miss 88 after the German artillery. And she was a neat person. She came over, she put her arm around me. She said, you're okay. And I said, where am I, you know? She said, you're in a hospital, and these other people are what you were like when you got in here. They're under sedation, and in due time they'll come out of the sedation, you know. And she said, you've been doing this now for 2 weeks. And I said, wow, you know. I had no idea with the passing of time. So I couldn't handle that too long, and I asked her and told her, I said, I've got to get out of here. I got to get to put me in another ward, or I want to get back up to my unit. And so they put me in this other ward, and it was the amputee ward, and I couldn't handle that. These guys finding out that they didn't have an arm or a leg, or either leg. So I got out of there, and I went to the front office and told them, I said, I'm all right. I'm going to find my unit. I'm going to go back. So I can't remember the unit that I went up with, but I went up with what do you call it? One of our ambulances. I think the Red Cross, but one of our ambulances. It picked up, you know, the wounded and so on, and bring them back. And I went back up part of the way with them, and then I went with the 85th or 86th Infantry. Stayed with them until I found my unit. And got back. But anyway, it was 2 years.
Well, tell me about the when you were real close to Hitler when you guys stormed. I don't know, it wasn't the Eagle's Nest, was it? That you guys stormed? That you had just missed. You had just missed him.
Well, we fully believed that we were going to go into Berlin because we were there first. And prior to that, we were held up on the Rhine because we ran out of gas, supposedly. And I fully don't believe that at all.
Mm-hmm.
We had the enemy running and scattered. We could have ended that war way before we did, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But we sat there 2 months waiting for gasoline, which is a lot of baloney.
Mm.
We had plenty of gas. But anyway, so that gave them time to regroup and to set up their front lines. And I'd hate to be the one that called that because it cost a lot of lives.
Mm.
But we were held up to go into Berlin too. We were ready to go into Berlin, and they let the Russians go in there before we did,
Mm-hmm.
which was another political issue, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
Everybody would like to have gone into Berlin. I wasn't the only one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, we in Luxembourg, when we were liberating Luxembourg, Captain Harris and I and one other sergeant had dinner with the Duchess of Luxembourg in Luxembourg.
You remember her name?
Called up. Called her Duchess.
Mm.
First name. I got a plaque that she gave me. Gave each one of it with her face, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The Duchess of Luxembourg.
Mm.
She was a real neat person. Very down to earth, nice, just a real personable. And they tried to stay neutral during the war. So. Anyway, after the war,
Oh yeah, I want to hear some other stories that you should tell. Like, but wasn't there, remember you said that you had stormed that one area that you thought Hitler had just been there?
Oh, you mean that house?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say Hitler had been there, but I know, I remember it was a village that we had taken, and we were set up on forward echelon to stay. So we were staying, and we stayed there about 2 days.
Uh-huh.
And during that period of time, we had time to look around. The first thing I found was a little chateau here, connected to other buildings. But and I looked in the window, and I could see Hitler's picture on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and everything was in perfect order inside.
Uh-huh.
And I looked through the window, and I thought, well, in our training, I remember it looked just exactly like it was in training. That when you see these things, you want to go in there and rip the picture off the wall and tear the place up and so on. And that's a good way to get
Blown up.
blown up, you know. 'Cause they usually have a booby trap.
Mm-hmm.
So we de-wired the door. We couldn't find one, and checked it all in. And finally, we broke the lock and got the door open and checked it very carefully, and nothing blew up. I told everyone, I said, now just hang tight, don't touch anything. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And we were hungry. We hadn't eaten, all we had was those stupid K rations, and we were out of those. So we usually ate what we could find up on the front line. And we opened it up, we checked that picture, you know,
Mhm.
checked it for wire, no hookup, checked everything in it. It was, not a bit of it was booby trap, that whole
Mhm.
thing. But then I heard click, click, chickens. I could hear chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you hear that? And he said, yeah, it sounds like chickens. We went over this wall, and it was solid all the way across. And I said, there's some way over there. There's chickens over there somewhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So this one corporal, he'd been outside. He said, there's a door here that you can't even see. So we went out, we opened it up, and there was 20 chickens in there.
Hmm.
You talk about a field day about eating. We had some chicken. Cooked them in our helmet. We had boiled chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That fed all of us for quite a while. They had a sergeant that was hung up there. It was a German sergeant. And the ones that passed through before us was the infantry, and I think it was the 68th or 65th. Anyway, he was hung up, spraddled. One leg tied over here, and one over there, and one arm over here, and one over here.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they used to do to us.
Mm-hmm.
They'd tie us up, upside down, and then shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
Evidently, that's what they did to him.
Was he alive?
No.
Oh.
I had 135 prisoners at one time that we had put in my care, and we were waiting for the trucks to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
Toward the latter part of the war, I had every type there was in there. We had tank battalion, we had a lot of infantry, and a lot of Wehrmacht, which was frontline diggers. You know, they dig trenches.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those were young people, young guys. But among the prisoners, I also had 5 8th Army Indians that fought with the British 8th Army.
Mm-hmm.
And they had deserted the 8th Army and joined the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
And then we captured them
Mm-hmm.
with the Germans. And a lot of young people. I had kids in there that were 11 and 12 years old that were carrying rifles. You know. So they were, you know, they were getting depleted of men, and they were getting depleted of equipment. So anyway, I was holding these people, and I just had my section, and it started to get dark, and I thought, man, if those trucks don't show up, I'm going to have a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I made these Indians go out and break wood, send a guy out with them to break up some wood and carry it back. And we put a great big fire there so that at least we could see them, you know, during the night. And they got back. I had 4 SS That's your stormtroopers. That's the ones that German call that's the super part of their army, was the SS. They had a SS initialed under their arm, right up under every one of them. All of them had that
You
same
mean on their body
Yeah.
itself?
tattoo
Tattooed.
up underneath their arm. And they were in full dress uniform. And while I was there, this two DPs of the Russian army asked me if they couldn't take them over and work them. And I said, well, we need more wood. If you take them over and bring some more wood back, it'd be fine. And as soon as they left, I thought, what an idiot. I don't think, I had a real horrible feeling. And sure enough, I heard bam, 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 and they took them behind the church and they killed them. Shot all four of them. Yeah.
Who
But
did?
they undressed them first.
Who was this?
The two Russian, we call it displaced persons. They're from the Russian army.
Mm-hmm. And they took the 4 SS back and shot them?
Shot them. Yeah. Well, which didn't bother me too much, but I couldn't do that.
Mm.
And had their clothes on.
They wore their...
Oh, you bet. Man, those nice big shiny black boots and they're good-looking uniforms, And then they ripped the S off, they cut that off.
Uh-huh.
Cut those off. I felt like shooting both of them, but not much I could do about that.
Hmm.
And I thought, boy, the rest of these are going to make a break if they know we're shooting them back there,
Uh-huh.
And then the trucks came. I'm glad to see that.
Wow.
But we had one, I told you they wore a uniform that color. A brown, real beige, kind of a beige color.
Uh-huh.
Most of these in the city were called officials, and they were like not a mayor, but they're overseer of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have 2 or 3 cities that they're in charge of. And these people are pompous, straight up people that were, well, self-centered, egotistical people.
Mm-hmm.
And he stood there all the time. They had him, and he just stood there with his head up, and his shoulders up, and his chin up, and he just looked around like he's above everybody. Everybody. When the trucks come, I grabbed this one driver and I pulled him over and I said, "You see this one city official?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You put him on last and beat his butt all the way to the truck. Just kick him all over the place, okay?" He says, "Well, you bet." So we packed the trucks, and they were just swollen the other side, and he wasn't on yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then this truck driver, he was a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Get!" So this guy ran, and as he was running, he was hitting him with a tube of fork across the butt, and then across the leg. He'd fall down, and then he'd try to get up, and he'd kick him again, and then he'd try to get, and he'd kick him again, and all of them up on the trucks were yelling, "Yay, yay!" They didn't like him any better than we did. So he just kicked him all over the place and screwed his uniform up, and he was filthy dirty. And there was no place on there to go. And he said, and the rest of them, every time he tried to get in, they'd keep him out. See? So he had to hang on the back. He was hanging on the back of it. And I thought, wow. And then this other truck came in behind it. So if he dropped off, they would have known he dropped off,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he rode all the way in, wherever they went, hanging on the back of that thing.
Mm.
So that boy was humble when he got a hold of that truck.
Did you ever, towards the end of the war, go into any of the concentration camps or anything?
Well, I was in Auschwitz, and yeah, I was in 2 of them. I can't remember the other one. It wasn't one of the big names. It was Bernersville or something. It was not too far out of Berlin. Yeah. We had a lot of Americans in this one.
In Auschwitz? Or the other one?
Well, they were mainly Jewish and displaced, or people who rejected the regime.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of political prisoners. Unfed, dying. None of them, their arms weren't that big around. They were just skeletons.
Mm.
Anyway. And they had a lot of shallow graves around it where they had buried them. And the people there in that city, they made them come out and dig graves to bury them decently. Rebury them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the one in out of Berlin, yeah, I don't know why I can't remember. But a lot of the Americans, of course, we loaded them up and got them back as fast as we could to the rear echelon for treatment. But we've seen a lot of that.
It wasn't bad tolls, was it? No? Kaiserslautern?
No, it was Badensville, Baden something, Baden.
Baden?
Oh, if I had the map, I could tell you. Badendorf. I think it was Badendorf.
Hmm.
Of course, they had a lot of them. There was quite a few of those camps. Yeah, I saw them.
The ones that, what was your role when you went there to Badendorf?
Why were we there?
Yeah.
Well, just on our route, our recon, when we pull up to a unit, or when we're scouting,
Mm-hmm.
of course we see everything. Of course I could tell what it was.
Mm.
But they had left, they were gone the time I got there.
You mean the Germans were?
Germans were all gone.
So they just left them there?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hmm.
And,
You were the first ones there then? The first
Yeah.
Americans?
yeah.
What? Did you go into the camp?
Yeah, we went into the camp and we talked to some that were able to talk and told us how long they'd been there, who they were, what unit they were with. A lot of these guys were captured at Cherbourg
Hmm.
at the time of the invasion
Mm-hmm.
and taken in. A lot of them too were, they didn't have any Jewish prisoners there. Buchenwald.
Buchenwald?
Buchenwald. Yeah, Buchenwald. That's where I was.
Hmm.
And yeah. In Belsen. Belsen was one of the big ones for the Jewish people. Auschwitz was the other one. Auschwitz was a big place for the Jewish people, where they had the ovens,
Mm-hmm.
and they killed them. They'd go in and take a shower, and then they would gas them.
Mm-hmm. Did you went to Auschwitz?
I was in Buchenwald
Like Buchenwald.
and Auschwitz. Yes, I went into Auschwitz and Buchenwald. The two of them.
When you went to Auschwitz, was it, were the Americans already there?
Yeah.
And they were...
Just not too long, just barely. It was part of the 4th Armored
Uh-huh.
Division that came in.
So what did they do when they got there? Did they...
Well, we had a lot of prisoners. Oh, we had, at the end of the war, we didn't know where to put them.
Mm.
Thousands coming, all with their arms up. All over the
Germans?
place. Yeah. I radio in, I said, what do you want me to do with these things? Where am I going to put them? He said, just make sure they're not armed and make them sit down. That's all you can do.
Mm.
So we gather them out in a big field, and that's where we tell them to go. And then when the rear echelon finally get up to us, and of course they can check them out for additional arms and things that they might be carrying you don't want to carry.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what a beautiful sight that was.
Mm.
To see thousands of them coming in with their arms in the air.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They were more tickled than we were,
Hmm.
I think.
Hmm.
So, we ended up coming home by points. We had enough points to give away. So, we were one of the first ones to ship out
Hmm.
to get home,
Mm-hmm.
along with the infantries. How much time you got on that?
Until it stops. It's probably about 15 more minutes.
Yeah. So I came home and I went back to work as a body man at the Ford garage.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had a big urge to go to California.
Where at?
Huh?
Where at?
Went to Long Beach, California, where we finally went to.
Mm-hmm.
Went there and stayed, worked, and
How did you meet Sue and Robin's mom?
so Jean was living in Twin Falls. That's before I left. And that's when, after I came back, that was the second time I went to California, and I came back, and I wasn't there only about 6 months. But I came back, and I met Jean, and she was in the throes of divorce, and I had been divorced, and so we went together for quite a long time. And then we got married. And then we both went to California.
Where at?
Long Beach. Back to
Long
Long Beach, California. And let's see, I spent,
What was her maiden name? Jean.
Terry.
Jean Terry?
Jean Terry. Margaret Jean Terry. Her folks both they had that farm in Twin Falls.
Hmm.
Where do we go from there?
So you went down to California and...
Yeah, I worked as a body shop foreman, body shop manager in 3 or 4 different places
And
in Long Beach.
what year or when was Sue and Robin born?
Well, Robin was born in 1950. Boy, that's awful to ask you that. It's 1950. 50, she was born. Let's see, that would make her
Sue was born first?
47. Hmm?